Okay, I'm gonna read a little bit more from the preface or the preview to the review lessons, because I think there's some things in the second part that are critical to the reason why this course has been given to us, and critical in helping us to understand exactly um, how one of the things we look at, time, becomes different after we've done, let's say, the lessons that we've already done. So, and of course, this is in relationship to my mind holds only what I think with God. And there's a reason for time that's much misunderstood um, and often discussed conceptually without actually looking to ask what it's all about. Um, there's an idea that's expressed in the Sparkly edition that God made time. And in one sense, because we think of the idea that God can create only eternal, that time was not possibly to be made by him, but it's not necessarily that he thought about, oh, I'm going to make time, but as an effect, in the divinity of the reality that we all are one with, as an effect of the idea of separation, what sprung or what sprung from that within the dream was the idea of a way of um, limiting our ability to miscreate so as to give us a limited or definitive block of something which we call a dream or consciousness within which we could learn. And that's what space and time has become. Now, we use it as a measure of duration before we recognize what the real purpose of it's for. So it's not like God created space and time, but everything everything eventually has to somehow reassociate back with our understanding of reality. And in our understanding of reality, we can see how space and time, while a limitation that was laid upon ourselves, was a limitation that we laid upon ourselves when we remembered not to laugh at that tiny mad idea, when we were actually part and parcel of the divinity of God creating. And I don't know if that's understandable or acceptable to anybody other than me, but it's something I was given to understand in a way that was the reassociation of my mind with everything real and true back to creation, and everything unreal and true stemming from the non-creative use of the creative mind that we were created with. And that creative mind that we were created in is the mind of God that we're sharing as the Son with the Father. So 5 minutes with this thought will be enough today. My mind holds only what I think with God. Um, be enough to set the day along the lines which God appointed and to place his mind in charge of all our thoughts. That's an incredibly valuable understanding, because it is our mind that makes the decision as to what we're going to learn and how we're going to look upon that which is given us to look upon in the reflection of what's being projected by the mind that is still sleeping and still is experiencing self as concrete and not in communication with God. But remember, we've had breakthroughs into the light and the light into us, and now we're beginning to perceive things differently. And while we may still vacillate back and forth, when we vacillate to the truth is whole and perfect, and we remember it that way, which is why it is so motivating and compelling in its power to keep us going in these lessons. So when we just wake up in the morning, because there is only this morning. In a real sense, there is no past. The past is gone. We're here today, now. Everything is held together in our mind by memory, not by space and time at all. We keep it alive in our memory, so we're keeping alive the words of Jesus in our mind when we wake up in the morning and we decide to allow the use of what he's expressing to be the organizing principle for the day, rather than the identification with the ego when we first wake up, and the chaos and disassociation, panic, fear, and guilt that it brings in our anticipation of what the day is going to be like. So here's a way to allow our mind to be ordered by a true thought, because there is an order of reality. There is an order to reality, and it's not until we're raised up, and let's call a vibratory frequency of energy by miracles, that we can understand the order of reality. And it says that in the Course. Other than that, we're identifying with the ego, and therefore the laws of chaos reign. So stuff seems to happen to us for no particular purpose, and as soon as it happens and we start to consider the purpose, we've removed ourselves from the now, and something else is going on, and it's very chaotic there. The law, like, is as if there's a law of chaos. The law of chaos is no law at all. There's no unifying principle in that sense. But the laws of God are a unifying principle, and allow us to see within the unity of the principle that we impose upon ourselves when we do something like this in the morning, an order and a new way of seeing, giving purpose to everything that we're going through, where previously we had no purpose and life was meaningless. That's understandable. And to place his mind in charge of all the thoughts we will receive today. They will not come from you alone, and that's the key to experiencing reality and meaning, because when you're alone and separate, there is no meaning, because separation is a false condition. For they will be shared with him, and so each one will bring the messages of his love to you, returning your messages to him. So will communion with the Lord of hosts be yours. Communion with the Lord of hosts, the reestablishing of communication where communication was broken for an instant, not just conceptual understanding of something that we use to continue to judge ourselves or think that it's making us more spiritual than other things that we've used to judge ourselves that were not from the Spirit, let's say. And he himself has willed it to be. And as his own completion joins with him, so will he join with you who are complete as you unite with him and he with you. This is an attempt to conceptually give you an understanding of what the oneness of the kingdom is, which can't be understood by the ego, but can be experienced in your heart when your mind sinks into its heart and desires understanding that of what these principles are and concepts are through the experience of it, not through the intellectualization of it. As it said in the very beginning, way back when we started in January, the experiences that are brought to us through the use of these lessons will make sense of the theoretical framework that is the nature of the text. And this is one of the most brilliant statements of it. And as his own completion joins with him, so will he join with you who are complete as you unite with him and he with you. The idea that they tried to use in Disney, the circle of life, is an attempt to demonstrate, or is the ego's attempt to make true, in a positive, reflective way, the idea of the circle of atonement, or the oneness of reality, wherein which we are part and parcel, but which we are not the creator of, but we are the completion of the creator's own completion, and his desire to share his completion and extend it as you desire to share your completion and extend it, which is what we're always looking for in each other, and are learning how to experience with each other. Wholeness experiences this wholeness and wants to share it with that which is also whole. Your brother is as whole as you are when we remove the barriers from our eyes and allow our open-mindedness to join with him, rather than thinking he's screwed up in the nature of his concepts and therefore can't possibly be whole because he doesn't recognize it yet. So this is a statement. The tech crew, because of the nature of who they are and where they are, and my willingness to communicate with them, once showed me a multi-dimensional vision of how the oneness of the kingdom works and how my oneness fits into the oneness of the entirety or the completion of reality, not as a separate oneness or wholeness, but within the wholeness of the totality of wholeness. Whereas I can be whole and perfect. My brother can likewise be whole and perfect. God can be likewise whole and perfect. And we're not intruding on each other's wholeness and perfection, but we're joining and utilizing it as the completion and the creators that we were designed to be. And here's what I wanted to get to. After your preparation, merely read each of the 2 ideas assigned to you to be reviewed for the day. Then close your eyes and say them slowly to yourself. Here's a good line. There is no hurry now, for you are using time for its intended purpose. Time had an intended purpose, but like everything, we lost the meaning and understanding of the intention of the purpose of time when we reassociate our minds in an association with God rather than we associate our minds in the inability to associate with God that is brought to us by identifying with the ego. So time had an intended purpose, and if it has an intention and a purpose, somewhere it must be associated with reality, not distinct in meaning from it, although not necessary what reality is, if that makes any sense to you. Let each word shine with the meaning God has given it, as it was given to you through his voice. So God has an intended meaning and purpose for the words within this book, within the words within this course that Jesus has brought to us as his intermediary and our intercessor, so that we can all utilize them, not conceptually, but in the vibratory frequency of energy that they reawaken in us as we reawaken to the brotherhood of man and mankind in the unity and divinity of creation, which we are all whole and perfect in. So we have to let each word shine with the meaning God has given it and not read them as if they're a separate source of entertainment that we're using to distract ourselves from the misery of the life that we're leading in an attempt to find some satisfaction somewhere else. Let each idea that you review that day, this day, give you the gift which he has laid in it for you to have of him. And we will use no format for our practicing but this. And then he goes on to say it. When we enter into communion with God through the intercession of our brother Jesus in his wholeness, as we join our wholeness with his wholeness, when we join with him, we join in wholeness. You can't join in separation, of course. And therefore, what begins to happen is these words take on the glow of heaven themselves, and they don't exist as separate in a mind, in a book, somewhere separate in an external reality, wherein which we think things are going on that could affect us or cause us. It is within the communion, the communication, the reestablishment of communication in and communion that is brought to us through the utilization of the lessons as our mind begins to lose its fixed perspective and open to the reality of light, which is fluid and not static in holding us in a condition, rather than allowing us to utilize everything to free us from the condition of a static life within space and time. There's an intended purpose to time, and anything that has a purpose can be used for a godly reason. That which is made for no purpose out of purposelessness just simply returns to the dust of the valuelessness of which it was offered. So my mind holds only what I think with God. I thank my Father for his gifts to me. Remember, I am one with God. Remember, you don't have to wonder what those gifts are. You just have to thank him. Remember, you are one with God. And in the fact that your mind holds only what you think with God, those gifts will be made manifest to you and given to you freely and you will desire to give them away freely himself, because that is the nature of the circle of oneness within which we live, and breathe, and see and be. So that will be today's lesson. My mind holds only what I think with God. I thank my Father for his gifts to me. Let me remember that I am one with him, and in our ability to allow that to be, to hold our mind to hold only what we think with God, in the shared nature of God's mind with our mind, the gifts will come forth as we not only could not conceptually recognize that I'm one with God, but let the words shine with the meaning that they're intended to have, for the intention that this course is brought to us by Jesus for, in his service as a soul and a special agent in the reality of the kingdom, and his desire to share with us what he has come to learn, because in our coming to learn it, we will no longer need time as it was either intended to be, or as we lost its intention for, in the forgetting that occurs in the identification with the ego. So that'll be it for today.